High in the hills of the occupied West Bank, a flag flies in the face of a Palestinian village. God is king, it says. 2 young settlers guard this illegal outpost. Construction hasn't even begun, but we are not welcome.
So they're asking us to leave. They don't want to talk to us. They said they've been here for about 9 months.
Dotted across the landscape, more signs of the fight to a...
Clarissa Ward has been kind of goaded after she was scolded by the fleeing Gazans in Rafah. It would take a lot for me to appreciate Clarissa Ward's coverage and work. I'm gonna be honest with you. She's done decent coverage. You trust chat too much, bro? Mother think they banning TikTok was a pro-Palestine takedown on TikTok. I think it plays a role.
Assert Israeli control over Palestinian land. The Arabic names on signposts crudely erased. Under international law, the Beit Hagla settlement is illegal. But last February, the Israeli government officially recognized it along with 8 others, a move the U.S. strongly opposed. We're here because God promised us this land, Azrael Piker tells us. Now these settlers have set their sights on a new prize, one that seemed utterly impossible before October 7th. Returning to Gaza, they cheer. That is the goal of Zionist settler organization Nahalah, one of more than a dozen groups now advocating for the reestablishment of Israeli settlements in Gaza. A recent promotional video even boasts that Gaza will become the next...
Before people say, oh, these guys are just edge cases or whatever, if there's any Israel defenders that remain in this chat, yeah, they're edge cases for now. And they're not even edge cases at all. Let's be for real. These guys are absolutely fully funded and supported by the Israeli government, and they are totally not like a random group. Many people in Israel simply overlook their mania, but are perfectly fine with them existing. Some hate them for propaganda purposes because they look really bad to the Western world, because their actions are insane. And to say that these guys are like edge cases now is ridiculous when you have Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is like the interior ministry secretary, like the guy who controls like all the police operations, and also Bezalel Smotrich. Things that used to be considered unimaginable become not only manageable, but also the reality in a very short period of time. They're not fringe at all.
Riviera. Daniela Weiss is the godmother of the movement, and she's already started recruiting from the 700,000-strong settler community of Israel.
We're just arriving now at a settlement in the occupied West Bank, and we're heading to a talk that Daniela Weiss is giving to a group of people.
Since they're sanctioned and being assisted by the IDF, the sanctions technically extend to the Israeli government. That's per the dude that was on Democracy Now! This morning. Yes. If there was like an actual real interest in applying international law to the situation, then yes, the Israeli government and even the American government would be liable for their actions. These guys are terrorists. What they're doing is settler terrorism. They are violently occupying a space that does not belong to them, and the obvious concept of like peaceful transfer of populations is not a real thing at all, and you see it in the West Bank every fucking day. Chatter found that TikTok made by this like meticulous 60 follower account called Destiny versus Destiny.
You know what? No. Okay, I will say, how many people live in Gaza? Is it 2 million people? Because I was going to say, why can't these other Arab states take in their brothers? How many people did Europe take in during the Syrian refugee crisis? Wasn't that 5 million plus?
Because you already said you would be okay being forced out of the country. Would you feel the same if you had a family? If you can imagine that? Let's say you had 2 kids and a wife, and they grew up in this country. And would you be okay with somebody telling you that because you don't fit their specific ethnicity that you have to now leave and go live in Sweden? What would you do if Sweden didn't want you there?
I don't know. I'd have to try to find Ireland maybe, because I'm mostly Irish. I'm more Irish than Swedish.
What would you do if Ireland didn't want you there? Because there's a huge exodus, a diaspora or whatever, of people from the United States. Let's say Ireland and Sweden say, we don't want you here. You're American. We don't even consider you Irish or Swedish. What do you do at that point? Where do you go? You make it sound so trivial that any person, and you said you're from Illinois?
Yeah.
Do you think that any person in Illinois could just decide to go move to another country, just pick a random country on a map and find a place there and live there and find work there and learn the language there and bring their whole family there and find schools for them and get a car? Like, that any person could just do this?
On their own, no, but if they have support from the government the government trying to look for a job, help them look for a job.
So now the United States government is going to help every single ethnic undesirable find work and school and learn languages in every other country around the world that they want to go to?
If it's gotten to the point where you have to resort to, deporting people to protect, your ethnic majority, then yeah, because otherwise, the only other option is
He refutes this statement because he says he's more educated now. Yeah, educated on what? He's right here. He's completely correct. He's not even making like a factual statement. He's making a logical statement. This statement inherently is devoid of like any kind of historical facts. Well, so is this statement as well, but not in the way that he thinks it is. He is simply utilizing logic. That is the one thing that Mr. Bonicello did for a very long time, which was simply whenever he had no historical facts, he could resort to a logical thought pattern that oftentimes would walk people through the steps of their argumentation to arrive at a conclusion. It's not like he's talking about any kind of, he's not bringing up any like historical references here.
You say you give up and you're willing to become a minority.
Okay.
So
By the
if
time you
can't
get to
leave-
ghettos, you're at state violence because people aren't just going to leave their house. Like, you're going to have to bring in a lot of state violence to get these people to forcibly move.
Like if he learned anything about history, he would be able to talk about historical reference points here, but he doesn't know anything like that. So he's just simply using logic here to be like, well, it's still violence, logic and morality.
People who are potentially interested in resettling Gaza.
We are for the land of Israel and Ben Gvir, she said.
No, they're not squatters. You want to know why they're not squatters? Because squatting is done on unoccupied land. This is not unoccupied land. You can squat in an abandoned building or a building that is empty or a house that is empty. When you actually, at gunpoint, through hate crimes and harassment backed by the occupying military force, by the way, and defended by the occupying military force, if you get pushed out of your home, kicked out of your home through violent means, through death, destruction of property, and then they come in and build a fucking shitty ass house on top of it and then live there, you're not actually squatting. What you're doing is settler colonialism. We did it in the United States of America, in the formation of the state that we exist in. We did this to the native populations that lived here before us.
About 20 people gather in the living room of a family home. Weiss knows that for many in this community, there is deep nostalgia for Gush Katif, a block of 21 Israeli settlements that were forcibly evacuated by the IDF in 2005 when Israel left the Gaza Strip. This is the vision of Gaza, she says. You see all the nucleus groups. A map has already been drawn up, with 6 groups laying claim to different parts of the enclave.
So they've just been handing out these little booklets that say, people of Israel, return home, and then underneath, a call to return to the settlements of Gaza.
One of the organizers tells the group they have a representative flying to Florida to raise money. Nachala gets support from a number of groups in the U.S., including
to Florida.
Americans for a Safe Israel.
Like that guy, when he flies to Florida, it's like having an ISIS dude fly to America to go and get money for ISIS. It is absolutely no different. He should be arrested. The fuck are you doing? Like, oh, we gave sanctions to like 8 settlers in the West Bank. Sick, man. What about the 100,000 fucking settlers that live in the West Bank that have American passports? When that dude touches American ground, he should be arrested for funding, aiding, and abetting a terrorist group This is why the concept of terrorism only applies to whoever the fuck we have decided in a very arbitrary manner is our enemy.
Which co-sponsored a recent webinar on the return to Gush Katif, even as the Biden administration has cracked down on settlements in the West Bank.
There is a very strong support from very prominent, from very, I would say, wealthy people, wealthy Jews.
In the U.S.?
In the U.S.
Can you name any names?
No, I cannot. No.
Back at her home in Kedumim settlement, Weiss tells us she's already enrolled 500 families.
I even have on my cell phone names of people who say, enlist me, enroll me, I want to join. I want to join the groups that are going to settle Gaza.
I have to ask you, though, because we're sitting here talking and we're listening to the
Yeah,
call
I'm listening
to
to
prayer,
it. I hope you are listening to
which
it.
is a reminder, I think, of the people who live here, but
Yeah.
also the people who live in Gaza. What happens to them
Okay.
in this vision of this new settlement with Jewish settlers even in Gaza City?
What I think about Gaza, the Arabs of Gaza lost the right to be in Gaza on the 7th of
Okay. Again, no moral consistency here, but like you literally are a fucking settler terrorist. How does a person become like this? Very carefully. This argument literally can be applied to the entirety of Israel for the Nakba, for the record. It is not one that I subscribe to across the board, but it is certainly the exact same argument that some make. Ridiculous.
October. Yes, I do hear the mosque. I do hear the prayer. Things were different until the 7th of October.
No, they weren't. You were still fucking operating. You're an opportunist who is utilizing the 7th of October to keep pushing your fucking bloodthirsty agenda.
Speaking about more than 2 million Arabs, they will not stay there. We, Jews, will be in Gaza.
That sounds like ethnic cleansing.
Okay.
That is ethnic cleansing, Clarissa.
The Arabs want to annihilate the state of Israel. So you can call them monsters. You can.
By the way, CNN had an article about this monster, and it was named The Grandmother That Wants Israelis to Return to Gaza, Genocide Apology of Freaks.
You can call them cleansing of Jews. We are not.
It's always so funny. It's like pure projection. Literally pure projection packaged. It's like, hey, we're not doing ethnic cleansing right now. You know who actually wants to do ethnic cleansing? The Arabs, which we have to ethnically cleanse before they do ethnic cleansing to us. That is basically at the heart of every fucking ultra-Zionist arguments. It's so frustrating to have this conversation while tens of thousands of Palestinians have been ethnically cleansed. Millions have been forcibly displaced. Their homes turned to fucking dust. It's like, don't look at that. That's preemptive ethnic cleansing before we get ethnically cleansed.
Doing to them. They are doing.
It's pure fascism, by the way. Like, what do you think the fucking Nazi argument was? Like, straight up, what do you think they were saying? They had to justify it. They had to propagandize it. Existing anti-Semitic tendencies already were very prominent in Germany. But having said that, there were justifications for it. And these were the justifications. These were the exact same justifications. This is at the heart of every fascist movement. People, I think, like, because of our black, white, good, evil understanding of the world, people always want this comfortable narrative like, oh no, the Nazis were bad because they're bad. Yeah, they are bad. Except bad people also are obviously going to propagandize their position. This is why there are entire fields of study dedicated to genocide, specifically the Holocaust, to perfectly map out the exact steps that were taken to get an entire population on board with ethnic cleansing. I think people have a very oversimplified understanding of how this shit works. Like, oh yeah, the Nazis were bad. They're all bad, which they were. And that's it. They don't even think about like how they were able to push this narrative. Many of them genuinely fucking believed that if we don't ethnically cleanse the Jews, they're going to ethnically cleanse us. A modern version of this fascist argumentation exists in a contemporary American politics, as a matter of fact. Exact same terminology is still used and deployed by the reactionary right on a daily fucking basis. We don't say that Jews are deliberately trying to bring in immigrants into this country with open borders policies, except when I say we don't say that, we do say that. Elon Musk did say that. He did actually say the great replacement is happening. So I guess we are kind of saying that now.
To us, I couldn't make it clearer when I said that myself, as a person who is preoccupied with settling the land, until the 7th of October, I didn't have plans of returning to Gaza. It's clear, I'm not interested in cleansing.
What is clear is that Weiss's views, traditionally seen as extreme in Israel, have become more popular since October 7th. In late January, jubilant crowds packed an auditorium in Jerusalem for the Victory of Israel conference, calling for the resettlement of Gaza. A poll that month from the Jewish People Policy Institute found that 26% of Israelis advocate the reconstruction of the Gush Katif settlements after the war is over. Among supporters of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing coalition government, that number jumps to 51%. Several ministers were present at the conference. Far-right heritage minister Amichai Eliyahu. In a
God. Take it up with Hamas, buddy. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Is it like, just like this level of Israel defense immediately signals that you're the grossest piece of shit to me? And I don't know if it's like that people become ugly both inside and out as a consequence of this defense, or if they just like they're self-selecting. They're ugly inside and out, so they're like, this is my movement.
Rare interview with Western media, he tells us his political decisions are guided by the Torah. Is there anything about Gush Katif in here?
Yes.
And that settlements in Gaza are needed to prevent another October 7th.
The language of the land says that wherever there is a Jewish settlement, there will be more security. Doesn't mean there will be absolute security, but there will be more security.
Why would you advocate for something illegal, is immoral, is not supported by the majority of Israelis, and is also very harmful to Israel in terms of its international standing?
Why do you think it's immoral to take land from someone who wants to kill me? Why is it immoral to take my land?
It's wild because, like, most of the Palestinian resistance doesn't take it to this extent. There are those who do, right? And you hear about them all the fucking time in American media as they portray all Palestinians as like bloodthirsty monsters. And it's kind of interesting that like pro-Israel people get away with this narrative on a regular fucking basis. Like, oh, it's war. We're taking land in war. Okay. So October 7 is fine then? Like, I don't get it. The fuck do you mean?
Land, which my ancestors lived there, which I've even given up to someone who slaughters, rapes, and murders me. What is more immoral than that?
Netanyahu has called resettling Gaza, quote, an unrealistic goal, and most Israelis agree. But that hasn't stopped scores of IDF soldiers fighting.
I can't watch the Al Jazeera investigation without combing through terms of service violations chatters. I need timestamps for that. Because obviously this is like going through a lot of TOS. Do not watch full of TOS. Yeah, I can't watch it right now.
There from posting videos calling for a return to Gush Katif. For many supporters of the settler movement, what was once a fantasy is now a fervent dream. Clarissa Ward, CNN, the occupied West Bank.